Hey everybody, I'm still here in Paris, and there's a few things I want to talk about. The other day, Lauren Southern put out a video where she talked about how Paris wasn't French anymore, or not as French as it used to be, and there's a lot to talk about, but instead of me telling you what I think, because I've only ever been to Paris a handful of times, I'm joined by someone who actually lives here, Victor, but you were just telling me you're not actually French, you're an immigrant.
Yes.
So where are you from?
I'm from Romania.
And why did you come to Paris?
I guess for economical reasons and to study here.
So in this video that Lauren did, she does like a time lapse walking through one of these neighborhoods in Paris that's predominantly migrants, you know, maybe North African or Muslim. And you were talking about this, but what is your, like, how do you feel about that? Yeah, what do you think is missing here?
I feel that this isn't really a representative street of Paris, and I feel that Lauren Southern, in a way, obfuscates her views. She doesn't speak. Actually, she doesn't say anything in the video. She just shows you.
Yeah, it was just a time lapse.
Yes, and in the description she says, in a hidden way, that the people that she sees are not white, in a way, because she assumes that they are not French. She assumes that they're all immigrants and that they don't speak French. Maybe they speak Arabic between each other, but here in Paris, with my family, I don't speak French, obviously. I speak Romanian. So that's not proof that I couldn't be a French citizen in a few years.
So do you think it's more that she's saying they're not white?
Yes. And her comments are really extreme, some of them. They're really...
Her comments or the comments from people on her...
The comments from her video on YouTube.
Like other people commenting on her video?
Yes.
Yeah, so I gotta be honest, I took a glimpse of the video, and it's, you know, it's a time lapse of walking through one neighborhood in Paris. You know, and in my opinion too, it's there are a lot of neighborhoods in a lot of big cities that are ethnically diverse. So I watched it and I was kind of like, well, it's a time lapse. You know, you can clearly tell that she's walking through one neighborhood. But I mean, what were the comments in particular that stood out to you?
Some of them talked about ethnic cleansing.
Gee, wow.
Okay, those are really extreme.
And I always want to say, like, YouTube comments are particularly bad.
But some of them were talking about white genocide, the idea that you are being replaced by other ethnic. And look, I don't want to sound like an SJW. I understand the idea of being culturally threatened by other ideas that are against free speech and things like that. But in her video, she doesn't represent that.
Yeah. It just comes off as more of a
race.
Yeah, a race thing.
Yeah.
So then, what do you think? I mean, there are a lot of people who are coming here through the Mediterranean, and one of the latest reports from the UNHCR shows that majority of them are not even refugees. They're economic migrants. They're coming here for work, and so there is a lot of concern that these people will displace the culture. But not only that, but they're, like you said, they may not agree with free speech. They may be very religious. So I mean, you came to this country. You're not from here. You've been here for a few years. You were saying, how do you feel about, you know, people coming in that might threaten or displace liberal ideas, or more liberal ideas like free speech and freedom of expression?
I think the way to go about this, like through policies and politically, there should be more focus about integrating people than trying to get rid of people.
Yeah.
Be hostile to people.
I mean, do you think that that's what Lauren was advocating in a sense? I mean, her video is basically more of a statement as opposed to, I don't know, a demand or something. Like, she's showing a street in Paris.
The best thing I could imagine that she would say is that we should limit immigration. And I agree with that point. We should limit immigration, and we should have a vetting process like in the United States. for sure.
I think that's what her stance is, actually. I mean, she takes a more activist-y, white nationalist approach, I guess, to it. I don't want to call her a white nationalist, but I mean, when you see these videos, I don't like asserting labels on other people if they don't use them, but going on the identitarian boat and then, saying France is not as French as it used to be.
I guess you could look from the perspective that she lives in Canada and she doesn't want that culture, the culture that is here, to come there. I guess you could view it as that. But the way I view it, I live in Paris. She criticized the way Paris is right now. What's her solution? Because my solution is to integrate people.
I think, yeah. I mean, based on the things that I've seen, I was doing some stories here in Paris on the refugees. I was in Sweden and Greece. And then when I look at my own hometown of Chicago, the biggest problem when it comes to, bringing in minority communities is the failure to integrate. And then it creates these pocket, these poor neighborhoods where people can't work. To me, that seems like, the biggest problem is that if there's no integration, people aren't working, they're not going to school, and then you create kind of communities within communities. So let me ask you that, have since you've been here, and again, you've only been here for a few years, have you seen, I guess, the face of Paris change?
I don't think so, honestly.
Looks the same?
I mean, yes, sure. There is some neighborhoods are definitely disintegrating. Some of them are really taking economic hits from the immigrants that they are taking. But what's the solution here? Because I don't see it.
Well, that's a tough question, I suppose. Because you've got people who have. It seems like the only solutions are either horrifying. I guess they're all horrifying, because if you do nothing, then it seems like the economy might get worse. People might come here who might bring a more conservative culture and then be opposed to things like free expression or women's rights. But you're right. The only other solution. Well, I shouldn't say the only other, but then it seems like what a lot of these more extreme right-wing people are saying, remigration, send people back, is. I guess it's also an extreme angle. I don't know. I don't know.
I think that's not very effective, honestly, because what guarantees that people that you send away won't come back? And that's a very economic. It's very expensive to do that.
Yeah.
To send people away.
Well, so I'd imagine some people are probably thinking right now, but you're a migrant. Of course, you're going to side with the migrants and want them to integrate. You're not a native-born French person. So I guess what would you say to that?
I don't see myself as a migrant, honestly. I don't identify myself as a Romanian, which the country where I live for a lot. I was born. I see myself, I don't know, as a citizen of the world, let's say. So I think there is a responsibility for the person who immigrates to integrate themselves in that place.
But what do you do when these people won't integrate?
I don't know.
I guess that's the big challenge, right? I think when you look at the video that Lauren did, I gotta say straight up, that was one neighborhood in Paris, and it's a known migrant area, and under the trains there's a lot of migrants that sleep there, and so if you go to the worst part of any city, and you can make it look bad, but when you go to Champs-Elysees by the Arc de Triomphe and the Eiffel Tower, it's significantly different. I mean, it's a big tourist area, but I guess I'm wondering if the media, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Lauren. I understand, she's doing what she thinks is right, but when she makes a video like that, people see that and they assume all of Paris is now, migrants, and I guess you live here, so would you say that that's not the case? Are there, I guess I'll just put it bluntly, are there neighborhoods that are predominantly French people? You walk around and you see nothing but French people.
I wouldn't say that it's about race that much. It's more about the economic status. There are neighborhoods that they are it's much harder to get in because there's a price for
Oh,
the
yeah.
rent for the. So yes, migrants who are economically poor, they can't get into those neighborhoods.
So, you were mentioning to me something before about policing language, that we see the left saying, you can't say certain things, and you
Yes.
you were talking about something about how you see something similar on the right. Do you want to explain what you meant by that?
What I mean is that the policing of the words has created this game, this political game, in which the right has learned to play it as well. They're not using certain words. They're never gonna use the N-word if they don't want to be seen as racist. They're gonna use some euphemisms. They're gonna change their language in a way that they can speak between themselves, but don't look strange from the outside.
Well, so this is what you mean when you said Lauren said France isn't as French.
Yes,
And
I think she's playing a word game here. I can't imagine that she cares about French people like.
eating frogs' legs,
yeah,
escargot.
yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's been a lot of pundits, even on the right, who said that these are the right-wing SJWs. Identitarians, which typically refers to the white nationalists. The word identitarian could also refer to groups like Black Lives Matter. It's people who use their identity for their politics. So, in some sense, the white nationalists and Black Lives Matter, they're sort of using similar tactics.
That's not my point, though. My point is that the left wing has been so successful at censoring some certain words that the right, the way they speak, they can speak more dangerous ideas right now and they don't seem as dangerous because they're not using the same words.
Yeah. So you think they're almost like code words,
Yes.
euphemisms. Well, so then what does that lead to? Do you think that there's going to be a growing right-wing extremist faction? I mean, it really looks like the more and more I'm looking at some of these social media accounts and these high-profile, I guess we call them SJWs, it seems like they're actually diminishing. I've seen a lot of very high-profile people recently come out complaining about how oppressive and how dogmatic the left has been. Do you think that the right is going to start snatching up that power and become something similar?
What my biggest fear is that these discussions become underground and our bubbles keep getting more extreme and extreme. That's
Yep.
my worry.
Well, in the U.S., we're seeing people beating each other in the streets. It is getting really extreme. And we had, I think it would be fair to point out one side over the other, but I don't want to do that. So I'll just say that, we had a politician get shot with a rifle just not too long ago. We had a guy bash someone over the head with a bike lock. So, we've seen a lot of political violence growing over the past several months. And these are people who refuse to talk. Well, I shouldn't say they refuse to talk to each other, but they tend not to be able to for whatever reason. And I see people on the left. I was at a protest in California where they flat out said, do not talk to the conservatives. They actually got on the megaphone and said, do not have conversations with these people. And to me, that just, I can only see it escalating if that's the case, if people aren't going to talk. So yeah, we've got like these two bubbles forming. Things are getting more and more violent, at least in the U.S. You live here in Paris. What do you think is going to happen based on what you're seeing here in France?
I think here's a much easier way to. Everybody can protest for everything. So I think there's much more discussion, honestly, here than in the US. That's my feeling, at least.
I wouldn't know. I mean, I live in the U.S. I see very little real discussion.
For example, my school is very feminist, you would say, but I don't feel threatened by these ideas. I don't feel like if I would say my opinion that everybody should be treated equal, it doesn't matter if they're a woman or a man, I don't feel as threatened as I would think I would be in a U.S. university.
In the U.S., it's getting really weird. I mean, we've got some really weird stuff going on. There's this guy, Tariq Nasheed. I don't know if you know who he is, but he basically made a swastika for his logo for his website. It's getting really weird. I don't even know how to explain it.
I think that list is very dangerous that he made.
Oh yeah, it is. And the logo he made for it was a swastika.
That was the fear. You being called a Nazi, you basically justify violence against the person.
Yep.
And that's basically what he did.
Yeah. He put people on a list, and that's, you know, fortunately, I guess the list was taken down for whatever reason. It's just very strange to see, you know, we're hearing now that there are some trans rights activists saying that sexuality is a choice, which is something normally we would hear from the Christian conservatives in the United States, and it just seems like everyone's getting so extreme, things are kind of flipping all over. I don't even know how to describe anything anymore. It just seems like all hell is breaking loose.
I think there's a big problem with these word games, honestly, because I really like definitions and the logical definitions. So if you try to smith a word, you try to create a word to make it mean what you want, I think that's a dangerous thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing people on the left redefine the word violence, saying it, you know, speech is violence, which by definition, no, it isn't. The definition of racism has changed. You know, I mean, or I should say they're trying to change it, but the actual definition, as used by most people, it hasn't changed. So I guess it's particularly concerning then, because what ends up happening is the right will say racism to mean one thing, and the left will say racism to mean another thing, and they can't actually communicate with each other because they're speaking two different languages.
For the logical definition of the word, it's very easy to call a left-wing person a racist sometimes. And that's a big problem in my eyes. The logical definition, if you take it.
Yeah. Why do you think that's a bad thing?
Because people who advocate to eradicate racism are basically becoming the thing that they hated before.
Yeah. That's the famous quote, you know, be careful when fighting monsters, lest ye become one. Yeah. Well, I guess the most important thing, I guess I kind of asked you this already, but do you think France is going to be okay? Do you think that Europe will solve the crisis and figure out how to actually deal with these migrants?
I'm usually a very pessimistic person.
Oh, okay, that's not a good thing.
So in the short term, I think there will become more problems and more problems, honestly. But on the long term, I can't see how free speech is such a French thing. It's such an important thing. It came with the Enlightenment. It basically inspired the U.S. Constitution.
Yeah.
I can't see it go away, honestly. Free speech is very, very French thing. And that's one of the most powerful things I think.
I agree. You know, I think even with when people say the bad ideas, you know, let these people come out, so when you push them underground they can grow and fester. Have it all come out, we'll all hear the ideas, and the stuff we don't like we'll say no way to. At least that's the way I see it.
Yeah.
But all right, man. Hey, thanks for joining me and hanging out, having a discussion about what's happening here in France. Comment below. Let me know what you guys think. This was particularly interesting. Check out Lauren Southern's video. I know I'm going to get a ton of flack from the left for saying that, but you know, you heard our thoughts on it. She was in one neighborhood. Her opinion is her opinion, and what she shows is the way she feels. And I don't, you know, again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I think, you know, Lauren is a commentator. She's a personality, and whether it's intentional or not, she's only kind of showing one part of what's going on. And it's a really, really complicated story, but I do recommend watching it so you can get a better context of what we're talking about. And then comment below again, let me know what you think. If you like the video, click the like button. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Timcast. If you want to support the work that I do, you can go to patreon.com/Timcast. Give whatever you'd like, or give nothing at all. My videos will always be free and available every single day at 4 p.m. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.